My name is Jennifer Pyatt, and I'm here in Indiana. I had the privilege to start a company called Pyatt Builders. And we went from, I think, our first year of selling and building 10 homes, and we're super excited about that, to our last year in business where we were well over 200 homes. It was just an incredible experience, and we definitely did not start our business to sell our business, but that's what eventually happened. We were acquired by a national builder. And
Okay.
that process, I can tell you a little bit more about that, but that was a
Sure.
unique and different experience altogether. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So then tell me, Jen, what was the motivator when you called me? Because I think you guys are relatively new in the business with the building business, and you called me to come do some training with your team. And I don't even know how many years ago that was now.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the unique perspective, I think, than some of the companies that you've probably worked with, that
Mhm.
I actually knew you as a salesperson, knew you as a coach, and then knew you in your own business,
Yeah.
in real estate and in training. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what do they call that? The triple threat? Well, you were like the
Yeah.
quadruple threat. You had a lot of experience. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of things that I knew you would bring to the table that are unique to a trainer,
Yeah.
and not really out there. Honestly, it just doesn't exist. A lot of these sales organizations, I see them making the same mistake over and over, where they are bringing in a sales guru and it's all about motivation,
Hmm.
which is great. That's needed and
Yeah.
in its own little spot. But
Yeah.
this is different. This is about giving the tools and the edge to people that are doing something very, very unique within the
Uh,
sales arena.
That is awesome. Well, because I mean, my philosophy. I think the biggest motivator is success. And I think when you can absolutely help salespeople discover um, their potential and help them execute that potential consistently, and they're successful, I don't think there's anything that's more motivating for salespeople than that. So I am, just about actually getting out there and doing it. So yes,
Well,
oh, go ahead.
absolutely. And where that I think comes to play is not just with the new person, but
Uh-huh.
also with your seasoned people. They still need
100%.
to hear all those steps over again. They still need
Right.
to, sharpen
Yeah.
the saw, so to speak. They need to go through this as well. And so do your
Yeah.
sales managers.
Right.
You need to have your sales managers just as good as selling as your
Absolutely.
salespeople. And your
Yep.
salespeople will see that. If a sales
Yeah.
manager comes in and they know that that sales manager doesn't really understand the process,
Right.
you could get anyone to manage, or
Yeah.
babysit a sales team.
Yeah. Yeah.
But your sales managers need to have that edge as well.
Yeah. They're the revenue drivers. They have to drive the revenue. And it's very difficult to do that if you haven't done that. It's a lot of
The
fun.
truth is that, the sales managers get out of the sales arena. So sometimes as an owner of a
Yeah.
company and you're looking to promote someone and it's your best salesperson out there,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of fear around that, because as soon as you promote your best salesperson, you've lost
Yeah.
your best salesperson.
So, I mean, just a little bit about getting started. Like, what made you decide when the market is like, tanking? And I know you were in, new construction. What made you decide to take the leap and start a building company? Was there,
Well, in those markets, so anyone watching this knows now how expensive land has become, and
yeah,
how much harder it actually is to enter into a market. You have to have
yeah,
everything, in the right category, and land
right.
is a big one. But
Okay.
in that market, there was opportunity. So there was opportunity to buy lots. There was opportunity to
Yeah.
work with developers that would now take on smaller builders or people
Okay.
that, because they didn't have as much going on. So
Right.
it was really about opportunity. It was
Okay.
a crazy time to enter into a business, but a great time to enter into a business.
So you are, starting in '08, and then 12 years later, you've decided, you're going to do something different. And so where were you guys? I know we just said about 90 million in revenue, but how many sales was that a year and how many sales people did you have?
We made it on the Builder 200
Oh, wow.
list. So we were in the top 200
Yeah.
in the country. That was exciting. We had the theory of always keeping it lean. So we were only up to, I believe, about 15 agents at that time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was smaller. After the acquisition, the company that came in and purchased us, there has been some hiring that has happened, and it's grown.
Okay. Grown.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit different now.
So you talked about, some of the things that were exciting. What would you say were like, I don't know, a couple of the big milestones for you in, getting Pyatt from zero to literally 90 million in revenue?
Coaching was a big one. Coaching
Yeah.
was a big one, and making sure that everyone out there was consistently executing, that
Yeah.
they weren't bringing in their own version of what a sales process was, that we
Yeah.
felt like they were out there all consistently executing the same sales process.
Yeah.
But your
Yeah.
salesperson still is the one that's closing that and executing that out in the field. So for us, it
Absolutely.
was important. An important milestone to get that sales team where they needed to be, to make sure
Yeah.
we had the most important people in the company,
Yeah.
as strong and passionate as we could get them. So I
Yeah.
think that that's something that, if you want to say milestone or you want to say what I was most proud of, I think that
Yeah.
was probably my most proud accomplishment for sure.
And I just love that because it is such a compound effect in terms of, just a compound effect with the image that your clients get of you, the brand, for your company, as well as revenue. Like people, they can't hear the same thing too many times to feel really confident about making a purchasing decision. So I always really appreciated that about you guys. And I think that was something huge to be proud of. And I'm sure that your salespeople appreciated that because it gave them a level of skill and an edge in this market that they can take wherever they go. It doesn't just, start and end with the time that they spent with Pyatt. It gives them an edge no matter what they want to do because that strategic conversation is so important. So I love that. Okay, I'm going to flip gears on that just a little bit and tell me what were your two maybe biggest learning curves?
If we're talking about training just in general, that's a huge life lesson because
Mhm.
I would say there were larger gaps where I didn't use you.
Uh-huh.
And then I would come back. And I mean, honestly, it's always comes down to, should I spend the money? Should I do
Right.
that? And really, that's probably the biggest life lesson is I should have probably set up more of a consistent program
Yeah.
because you do have dips, and
Yeah.
when you have those dips, what can I do to make sure? And it's not just going after your salespeople, and accountability is important, but it's also about making sure that they're executing properly. So
100%.
shopping your salespeople and making sure that they're executing properly. So that's the biggest, I think, lesson that I took was in those dips was bringing X factor, bringing you back in to making sure. And sometimes I think that, when I had conversations with you and I would get off the phone and I'd think, well, I feel stupid. I should have. Exactly. She's 100% right. You have a way of holding me accountable, as the business owner of, well, why aren't you doing this? Well, shouldn't you
Yeah.
be doing that? And I think, well, yeah, of course I should. So if we're just talking about training, that's probably the biggest lesson is consistency with actually using
Yeah.
it in the process.
I am so glad you brought that up because you are not any different than any other business owner who has a budget and who has to decide where is the highest leverage in that budget. And you are so right in that it's always that question, should I spend this? And I'm like, you really can't afford not to
Right.
because at any given time, there's likely at least 6 or 7 figures falling through the cracks on a monthly basis. That's just one or two deals. that are
Yeah.
falling through the cracks because even your best salespeople need to be coached. I always like to compare it to like sports, like the high paid athletes, or even, high paid actors and actresses, like they get paid to execute. They don't
Right.
always get paid to create. They don't, bring the plays to the NFL team. They execute what's already been proven to work. And even in fact, the best are the ones who know they need to be coached. And they keep, because a coach hopefully is going to see you a little bit differently than you see yourself and help you tweak something small that can have a huge impact, on your revenue, like language. I say language drives revenue, and knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it, is just huge in giving
Well, we've
people,
seen
confidence.
that with talent. We've seen that
Yeah.
on shows like American Idol and The Voice, where
Yeah.
they have a coach that,
Yeah.
I mean, gives them feedback, helps them through the process. And we've seen how someone goes from
Yeah.
0 to 10, in
Yeah.
just a short period of time because
Right.
of the coaching.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So I'm just glad that you said that because I do think that that is, the question for, every manager every year, looking at the budget, like what am I going to spend that money on? And then you see those dips. So with that, and I think I might know your answer, but from your perspective, what do you think is the number one critical factor in getting salespeople to execute consistently?
Well, the buy-in is super important.
Yeah,
You have to, I believe, really gauge whether you have a person across from you that is open, that they're coachable. So a lot of your more senior people are settled in their ways, but your good salespeople, they want to continue to learn. They're open
yeah,
to that. And then your new people, they have to see it in action. So once they see it, is where they
yeah,
start to believe it.
yeah,
And I think a lot of times with a new salesperson, where they get that aha moment, or what I've heard from them is, I was out there and all of a sudden I just started saying something that I heard in training and it made all the difference
yeah.
in the process. Or I was so fearful to talk about that. And now I'm somewhat comfortable with talking about that, but it made all the difference in the process. So,
Yeah,
getting your buy in from your newbie all the way to your senior person is super. And, sometimes you have to, cut the weeds. So if you have someone
yeah,
in those classes, I always appreciated that feedback from you of,
yeah,
he is just not getting it, or this person is a little bit of too much of a naysayer. What
yeah,
is that? Because I see the talent in them, but why are they pushing so hard not
yeah,
to accept this?
yeah.
So you also bring that to the table. It's kind of like therapy. It's a little bit like therapy.
For
So
sure.
um,
Counseling, for sure.
that's where
Yeah,
it really gets good. And it's
yeah,
okay to find out weakness in
yeah.
people. It
Absolutely.
because when you find it, you can fix it. Or
Right, right,
maybe you can't, and that
right.
person just isn't the right person on your team.
Yeah,
That's why I feel like it's so important. And I know I've said this before, but for the sales manager to really have buy-in, you've got to have buy-in from the top, because
100%.
it can blow up the whole situation. And
Yeah,
making sure that those salespeople see the buy-in, they see the excitement. Not only
yeah,
that, but they know that that person can also execute as well. So that's part of the experience too, is make
yeah.
sure they understand, it's not like stick to them like glue and
Right.
overwhelm them. That's not a part of it. It's that smooth, getting comfortable, knowing
Yes,
your information and being really confident in it.
yes,
Um,
yes.
that's what I think X factor. That's the X factor. That is the
It is.
unique part of your sales process.
Yeah, that is it. And I know you agree with this because we've talked about it so many times, but people buy a payment before they buy a house. And so if you're not talking budget, even if they're paying cash, people like to talk about their money. If you earn the right, you got to earn the right. But that's another huge part, I think, of the process that sometimes, getting that buy-in. And once you have that and salespeople see how powerful that conversation is with people and how you can make them feel so much more comfortable before they go meet with the lender. I just think that's another X factor, you
And
know.
you don't have to be a mathematical genius.
Nope.
It's very simple. It's a lot of
Yeah.
conversation and
Yeah.
finding out things. And what it does in your mind too, as a salesperson, it gives you that reinforcement of whether this is a viable person to buy a
Yeah.
home. If
Yeah.
they're saying I
Yeah.
have three bankruptcies and all these different things, you can then determine where their trajectory is in this process.
Right.
Are they a
Right.
homeowner down the road, or are they a
Yeah.
homeowner right now? You can
Yeah.
kind of figure some of those things out. Regardless, you're going through the sales process regardless. You're
Yeah.
going through it regardless. And it's
Right.
important for them to learn those lessons of buyers right now and buyers in the future. They're all buyers. You keep them
Yeah.
all, or they may have a cousin or a sister.
Yeah.
You have to keep them engaged. I
Yeah.
think that part of it, budget, is probably because a lot of salespeople tend to think, well, that's intrusive. That's none of my
Yeah.
business.
Right.
Of
Right.
course, it's your business.
Of
It's
course.
absolutely your business.
Yeah.
You are bringing to me a person that I
Yeah.
am going to now, they're not closed on this home, and
Right.
I'm going to spend the money to build them a home. That's my financial start
Right.
of this person's life, not theirs
Right.
yet until they get the keys. So
Right.
it is important for us to understand where
Critical.
this buyer is. There are some builders out there that don't want
Yeah.
that part of their sales process, and it's might be the most important part.
So you're really passionate about the practical application, of the process. So with that, my next question is, when did you know that you thought you were going to move to the next, thing and potentially not continue, owning Pyatt? You guys decided to sell. So when did you know?
The market kind of just opened up. So
Okay.
we had built a great reputation,
Yes.
but everything seemed to be at the time, and that was just 18 months ago,
Right.
of this is the perfect timing. It was hard to turn down. It was just
Yeah.
really hard to turn down.
That's awesome.
Um, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I can imagine that that would have been hard, but what a phenomenal opportunity. I mean, you guys took the opportunity when it arose, 12 years ago, and you just, dove right in. You did a phenomenal job building, like you said, a company with a fantastic reputation. Your brand was amazing. It was always that feeling of, a small company, an important client. You never felt like a number. So, you guys just did a great job of taking advantage of those opportunities, and then it arises again, and you can see it, and you're in a great position, to take advantage again. Timing and preparation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's awesome. Kudos to you. So then, and you have those super cute twin boys. I know you're excited to be able to spend more time with them. So what's next?
It won't be
Yeah.
another Pyatt Builders. We've done
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I am a believer in when you've done something, be proud of it, even if
Yeah.
you're walking away from it. And there's something new
Absolutely.
that you can. And we love real estate. We
Absolutely.
love Indiana. We
Yes.
love all of that. So it's just something new is coming our way. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Well, you guys have had an amazing journey, and I just feel a privilege that I've been able to kind of walk alongside you on it for goodness gracious, a few decades, at least a couple decades now. Seems crazy how fast time goes.
Right.
I feel like
I
we sort of
know.
grew up together
Yeah.
in this whole industry. But what an amazing blessing, like you said. Just fitting that it's around Thanksgiving that we're doing this.
Right.
So much to be thankful for on all sides. And I'm really, again, thankful for you doing this. And it's really exciting. And I guess my last question that I'll always ask clients when they do these calls with me, because there are other people out there like you, sales executives or sales managers, and they really do need to increase their revenue. They would like to not, pay for more leads. But for some reason, whether they're just busy or some limiting beliefs, they haven't flipped the switch yet. But if they're watching this right now, say on like YouTube or they follow me on social media, what would your advice be to them as far as, the next thing they should do or what you would
Well,
say?
a lot of the people making the decisions may not have the same caliber as a salesperson. But
Right.
a lot of business owners and people that can make this decision do have the characteristics of aggressiveness and risk taking and all of those things. And the interesting part about something like this is that it doesn't cost anything to pick up the phone and to have a conversation.
Yeah,
And if you are out there, especially right now in this market, this is a
yeah,
perfect time
yeah,
to look at something that really fits within your organization. I know your sales process is what it is. It's a sales process. It is created for new home sales. But it's not cookie cutter. It is
yeah,
not a process. You can customize things in that fit within an
100%.
organization, and you take who they are and the heart of who they are, and you plug that into your process. So and your training, I feel like getting that off the shelf kind of training to your salespeople right now is a huge waste of time that
Hmm.
you need to at least look into it. Pick up the phone.
Yeah,
I
no
don't know if you have
problem.
your links or whatever it
Yes,
is.
I will.
Yeah, just take that first step to actually looking at what this is and what that looks like. I guarantee you would not regret it. That's what I would say. And if that sounds salesy or whatever, but that's just the truth. It's just take that first step. And understand if you've never been out in the field and you're an owner of an organization that sales caliper, she understands all of that. She gets who is a good
Aw,
salesperson,
okay.
who's not a good, who has how many years it's going to. I've heard you say about 2 years he's going to be good. And sure enough, 2 years later, I'm thinking of one specific person. He was my best salesperson. And he was completely new to new home sales.
Yeah.
I also have a couple that I have one guy that worked for me that my favorite saying of his was, "You cut me open and I'll bleed sawdust." That's how long he had been selling. And he would walk out of that. I mean, he still needed it. You still need
Yes.
it. So,
Yeah.
as an owner of an organization, you
Yeah.
cannot go wrong with just to listen to what X Factor can do for your team, not just from the rah rah rah, but
Right.
also from the pure. You got to see results,
Digging in.
results, the
Yeah.
execution. Every time I brought you in, I saw results. My biggest mistake, like I said, if I could look back, was not doing it more consistently. Um,
Yeah.
and I think because of being a private company,
Yeah.
it was always, okay, can we afford to do this? Is
Right.
this the right spend?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you can take that away and open up
Yeah.
those purse strings,
Yeah. Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
so worth it. You're
Oh
going to
yeah.
get it back. Just like you
Tenfold.
said, one or two sales a month,
Yeah.
it pays for itself.
Yeah. By far. It absolutely does. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This has been so fun. I'm so glad we got to do this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
actually I'm a little jealous, I have to go back to my new life and now I want to jump in and into that life. So yeah.
Hey, anytime you want to get some hours in with a team, call me. I could
Okay. All
always
right.
use a little help. You would be phenomenal.
All
That
right.
would
It'd
be
be
so
fun.
fun.
It would be
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely.